Shiloh Season, Chapter 11. There's not even time to think. I grab Shiloh up in one arm, Becky in the other, and run up on the porch. "Ma!" I yell, and she's halfway to the screen. She opens it for me, and I drop the two inside. Shiloh runs over to a window and stands up on his hind legs, front paws on the sill, wanting to see. "Dara Lynn?" calls Ma. I turn around on the porch to see Dara Lynn backed up against the chicken coop, like her body's frozen. Dogs all around her, snapping and snarling. And first thought in my head is that Judd's sicked them on us. Maud goes charging down the steps and grabs the clothes pole that props the line up on a wash day. I grab my baseball bat from off the porch, and we're running over to that chicken coop. Dara Lynn's screaming now, elbows up over her face, and this one dog, the black and white one, lunges forward and nips her arm. Whack! Ma brings down the clothes prop on the black and white dog. The others snarl and turn our way. But I'm swinging that bat out in front of me 90 miles an hour, and Ma's bringing that clothes prop down a second time. The dogs back off. Air is filled with noise. Dogs are yelping. Ma is shouting. Dara Lynn's screaming. Shiloh's yipping. Becky's standing at the screen squalling, and the hens are all carrying on in the chicken coop. The black and white dog seems to be the leader. As Ma's pole comes down again, he hightails it out of the yard, and the others follow. Ma grabs Dara Lynn and rushes her to the house, cleans that bite with soap and water. About this time, Dad comes home. "Whose dogs are those running up the road?" he asks. "Judd's," I tell him. "They got loose and come over here, and one of them bit Dara Lynn." She's sobbing. "I didn't do anything. All I was doing was playing out in the yard, and those dogs came up and bit me." "You sure they were Judd's?" Dad asks. "I know 'em anywhere," I tell him. Ma calls Doc Murphy, and he says to call the sheriff and get those dogs picked up. The one that bit Dara Lynn will have to be kept locked up for 10 days to see whether or not he's got rabies. If he does, Dara Lynn's got to have shots. If we can't find the dog, she'll have to have him anyway. Dara Lynn howls again. Dad calls the sheriff, and he says somebody already reported them, that those dogs killed somebody's cat. He's got a man out looking for them. Dara Lynn's sobbing now, and Becky squalls too, just to join in. Shiloh runs from window to window, whining, standing up on his hind legs. Meanwhile, Ma's turnips have boiled dry, and the pan's starting to scorch. Ma turns off the fire, takes Becky out on the swing, and tries to cool her own self down. "Let's just sit here a spell and rest," she says. "Becky, it wasn't you got bit, so quit squalling. Dara Lynn, you're not going to die anytime soon, so just come sit by me. Let me have 5 minutes of peace and quiet, or my head is going to just fly straight off." Becky looks up at Ma's head and starts sucking her thumb. Dad and I come out on the porch, then with Shiloh, and we sit on the steps while Shiloh goes trotting all around the yard, smelling for a trace of those dogs. Guess a dog's nose tells him a whole lot we don't know anything about. "Wonder how in the world those dogs got loose," Dad says. "Judd had chains on them, and they would have held a grown man." Judd had chains on them that would have held a grown man. "Were they dragging their chains, Marty, or what? I didn't notice." "No, looked to me like they were all unhooked at the collar," I tell him. And just when we thought we had had enough excitement to last us a while, here come Judd's pickup turning into our drive. "Well, look who's coming," says Dad. Shiloh stands so still it's like he's turned to stone. He knows the sound of that pickup better than he knows his own name almost. And soon as it stops beside Dad's Jeep and Judd puts one foot out, Shiloh races over to our steps and crawls underneath. Seem like he don't even trust that I can save him. Got to get some deep, dark place away from out of reach of Judd Travers. Judd comes stomping across the yard in his cowboy boots, and his face looks like thunder. If you was to give Becky her crayons and tell her to draw it, she'd choose purple. "Ray Preston, I accuse you of turning my dogs loose." Judd just says right off, a voice 3 times too loud. "Now calm down, Judd. I did no such thing," Dad tells him. "You put your boy up to it then. Marty didn't have anything to do with it." "Well, somebody come by and unhook the chains on all 3 of them. And the neighbor says he saw my dogs coming off your property." Now Ma speaks up. They were here all right, and one of 'em bit my daughter. Show 'em, Darylyn. Darylyn holds up her arm and gives a loud sniffle. If Marty hadn't got Becky, no telling what they might have done to her, Ma continues, but Judd don't believe it. That is a put-up lie I ever heard one. Sheriff tells me he finds my dogs. He's keeping the one in a cage for 2 weeks. That's my second best hunting dog, the black and white one. It's the only way they can tell for sure whether or not the dog has rabies, Dad says. Any dog that bites someone has to be watched. I see what you're up to. Don't you think I don't, Judd says, like he never heard one word. You took my best hunting dog, and now you're cooking up some story about my second best. I'm going to lose 2 good weeks of hunting because of this, and I want you to loan me that beagle. I can use him. My heart almost explodes inside my chest. No, I say. Judd, says Dad, why don't you sit down? We can talk this over man to man without getting all hot under the collar. I'm not sitting and I have nothing to say, except you owe me the use of that dog. Becky slides down off the swing. You can't have him, she says, her little neck thrust out, face all screwed up. She's sassing this big old man in the cowboy boots, but I notice she's got one hand still holding fast to Ma's skirt. Hush, Becky, Ma tells her. Judd, I say, trying my best to reason with him, even if we were to let you, Shiloh wouldn't go. He'd go all right, says Judd. Where is he? And he gives a whistle. Under the steps. Shiloh don't move. I wonder if he's even breathing. See, chirps Darylyn, he won't even come out. And she points to the steps. I could have drowned Darylyn. Judd goes over to the side and gets down on all fours, and I'm just close enough I can smell the beer on his breath. Don't think he's drunk, but he's been drinking. Here you, Judd yells and whistles again. Come out of there, boy, come on. I'm wondering what Shiloh's thinking right now. Does he think I'm letting this man come get him? Stay there, Shiloh, I whisper, but I'm remembering the way he looked first day I found him back in the weeds over near Judd's, crawling along on his belly. Only thing that brought him to me was a whistle. What if he's so scared of Judd, of all what that will happen if he doesn't obey, that he comes out? Am I going to just sit here and let Judd take my dog for even 10 days? Will Dad let him? I'm glad to see that nothing's happening. Shiloh probably scrunched up in the far corner beneath the steps as far away as he can get. Judd gets up off his hands and knees, cussing to himself, and goes to the clothes pole. He comes back with it, ready to poke my dog out. No, I say again, and this time I stand up. You ain't going after my dog with that pole. Now, Judd, put that down. Dad gets up too, and his voice is strong. That dog belongs to Marty now, and you don't have permission to take him. I know you're upset about your dogs getting loose, but acting this way is not going to help. And Ma says, we got a daughter with a bite on her arm, but we're not going to press charges, so there's no cause for us to be mad at each other. Judd stands there a full 15 seconds, the pole in his hand. He glares at Dad, then at me. He even glares at Ma and the girls. Suddenly he throws the clothes pole to the ground. I ain't through with you, Ray Preston, he says. I know you and that boy are behind this. I bet a week's pay. You ain't heard the last of me. You ain't seen the last, and I'm telling you now, you'll be sorry. He goes back across the yard, gets in his pickup, and turns around on our grass with a loud roar and a squeal of the tires. He barrels on down our driveway, the dust from the gravel rolling off to the left. Shiloh creeps out, comes up the steps, tail between his legs. He huddles against me, about as close as he can get, and I put my arms around him. We don't say a word, none of us. Just sit there watching that cloud of dust till Judd gets out to the road again and makes his turn.